What's up, Gabe Pluguez here, founder of Default Kings. If you don't know who I am or you don't know who we are, we have helped over 350 men at the time of this recording lose an average of 30.1 pounds. Okay, and we teach them our default actions framework so that they can learn how to keep that weight off for good and win the battle against permanent weight loss. So if you are a family-minded man, a man who values family, freedom, faith, and you want help losing 10% of your body weight in the next 12 weeks guaranteed, and you want to use our default actions framework to learn how to keep it off for good, then you can go ahead and click this link right here. It's also linked at the bottom of this document, but click this link and it's going to take you to our website where you can watch a free video training on how to use the default actions framework. And then you can also book a free brainstorming chat with my team so that you can discuss more in depth with them how to actually apply that to your situation and your life and your family priorities and your work schedule. Okay. So go ahead and click that link right here if that is you. So other than that, let's dive into this amazing document where we're going to talk about how to unleash unstoppable motivation. Before we go through this, before I explain how all this works, remember that the purpose of this document is to give you actionable guidance to build real consistency with your healthy default actions. Okay, so that you actually lose the weight and keep it off for good while you're building that strength and getting healthy. The goal here is permanent motivation, right? Permanent fat loss. Watching this video alone or digesting the document alone is not going to actually be sufficient to give you the permanent motivation. It is going to be motivating in the short term, right? It's going to stimulate that emotional drive and be pumped up and be like, yeah, I can do this. Woo, this is important to me. And then that's eventually going to fade, which we're going to talk about why that happens a little bit later in the video. But you need to actually apply the things that are listed here in this document. There's going to be a little bit of homework, which I think you can handle at the end here, but the benefits of that homework are going to be lifelong, right? They're going to be the things that bring you to that permanent health. They're going to be the things that allow you to finally become the man who has the discipline and drive and consistency that you know God is trying to call you to have, right? The little homework that you do here can help you become the man where your kids are looking up to you, your wife is looking at you as a man that they actually respect and they revere because he's a man who's disciplined, driven, and does what he says he's going to do. So let's dive in. We're going to be breaking down a case study here of one of my clients, Henry Tolliver. Okay, Henry is 41 years old. He's a husband, he's a father, and he's completed 350 workouts in a row at the time of this recording. And he's lost 168 pounds so far and counting. Started at 430 pounds. Okay, 430. So all likelihood is that you are not 430 pounds. You are probably more somewhere in like the mid 200s, right? Mid to maybe upper-ish 200s. And Henry, if you can imagine where you're at right now, where you lack motivation, right? And you lack the drive and you lack the consistency and you lack the discipline, imagine how much less motivation there would have to be for you to get up to 430 pounds. Okay, this is a case that is not usual, but I think that's why this is going to be so valuable because this is the exact framework that I'm about to break down that helped Henry, who was 430, unlock unstoppable motivation. This is the exact framework that helped Henry, who was 430, complete 350 workouts in a row and lose 168 pounds and achieve consistency. Okay, so if it can work for him, it can work for you. So spoke to Henry late 2021, November 2021, and I remember him telling me that he was 430, and he told me that his goal was to get under 400 pounds before he turned 40. That was his concrete goal. And I started to ask him like what his struggles were, and he was talking about this complete lack of motivation, right? He didn't even have the motivation to get himself to do like basic physical activity, like just walking, right? He lived a very sedentary lifestyle. He was working from home, which a lot of people do nowadays, especially after this pandemic. But he didn't have even the motivation to get up and walk. But it wasn't until he started to see his son, he's a young boy, he started to see his son take after his example, right? We talk about how men are the leaders in the household, how men lead their families. And you know, sometimes people will discuss like, are you a leader or are you not a leader? And I don't think that's really the case. I think that men as a default are the leaders of the household, but really the difference is, are you a good leader or are you a poor leader, right? Like whether you like it or not, the people around you, the people who look to you are going to emulate your example and they're going to follow your lead and they're going to move in the direction that you pull them, right? And so Henry recognized this. He recognized that he was pulling his son in the direction of a sedentary lifestyle, of overindulging in food, right? Of eating and overeating all the time, of mindlessly eating. And his son started to gain weight. And Henry was recognizing how terrible he felt just personally, right? Constantly in pain, no energy whatsoever, no motivation, poor health, having a countdown timer on his life. And it was killing him, knowing that he was setting his son up for a very, very similar lifestyle, and consequences that might have been even worse, right? So Henry's talking to me about this, and he's talking to me about how he doesn't have this motivation, right? And although he says he lacks motivation, when I ask him, like, how would he rate his motivation, he's able to explain to me very, very clearly and articulately his motivations. Okay, so that's going to be one of the key differences here. I want you to understand that there is a difference between motivation and motivations, right? Because that is what's going to answer here this $1 million question of how did a man who was completely sedentary, overeating constantly, mindlessly, 430 pounds overweight, how did that man become a beast who is 350 workouts deep and counting and 168 pounds down and counting? Okay, this man has transformed so much that even at his local gym here, they filmed like this mini documentary promo video documenting his story as a means to inspire other new people in the gym. So how did he go from the guy who completely lacked motivation? How did he go from the guy who had dug himself into such a deep hole of low motivation that he was 430 pounds? How did he go from that to the guy who's now a pillar of motivation for others? How does that happen, right? How this happens is exactly what I kind of alluded to earlier, right? These two different actual meanings of motivation, these two different definitions. If you look at the definition right now on Google, it's going to spit out two definitions. Definition number one is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Okay. Definition number two is the general desire or willingness of someone to do something. Okay. So digest those for a moment and try to understand the differences there. One is the reason or reasons you have for behaving in a particular way. Right? What reasons do you have right now for overeating? What reasons do you have right now for skipping your workouts? What reasons do you have right now for hitting the snooze button? What reasons do you have right now for any of the other unhealthy default actions that have gotten you to the point at which you're at right now? Overweight, right? And then number two is the general desire or willingness of someone to do something. How would you rate your general desire or willingness of you to exercise consistently? How would you rate your general desire or willingness of yourself to eat healthily, right? It's probably pretty low. You want to be the person who wants to do those things, but you right now don't want to do those things, which is why you're not doing them. So these definitions are pretty simple, right? But that delineation is pretty crazy because you can be the type of person who has motivations, right? Reasons to do certain things. But you might also, while having strong motivations, not have motivation. You might not have a desire to do certain things. Like if we talk about your potential motivations, I'm willing to bet that you have some pretty deep emotional driving motivations, like wanting to have more energy to play with your kids, right? You understand that if you're able to play with them, that's not just enjoyable for you and satisfying for you, but you understand that playing with them is going to build a bond and that's going to affect your future relationships. And so you have that very, very strong motivation, right? You might want to set a more disciplined example for your children, like Henry did, so that they understand how to operate in this world as men or as women, so that they can perform and so that they can bring up their families, right? And so that they can be successful and so that they can be happy. Maybe you want to set that example for them. Maybe you want to build more functional strength into your 40s and 50s and 60s so that you can keep up with your kids when they're older. I know that's something that resonates extremely personally for me because this is something that my father, I'm 23 at the time of this recording if you're watching this. My father is right now, what is it? It's 2023. So he is 53. He just turned 53. But my dad, this is one of his deepest motivations, right? And this has always been one of his deepest motivations. And now he is facing the consequences of not having been consistent And although over this last year, he's been a lot more consistent, a lot healthier, he still has to deal with the consequences of not having the motivation to do this, right? Because there have been vacations, there have been hikes, there have been things where me and my brothers are going out and participating and building relationships, and he's unable to participate because of his physical condition, being overweight, being in pain, being weak. So maybe that's a motivation for you. Maybe you don't want to have to sit out of just like other things you enjoy, like golfing, right? Because your back always hurts, right? Or you don't have the energy to get up and do it. Maybe you just want to look the part. Maybe you want to look respectable. Maybe you want to be revered by your colleagues or employees or people that you're selling to or people that you're presenting in front of or people that you are called to lead, right? Maybe you want your body to be a physical representation of your discipline and drive. Maybe you want to look good for your wife, right? Maybe you feel like she actually deserves a man who she's not only deeply attracted to and drawn to, and a man who excites her, but a man who is, again, a physical representation of discipline, drive, and security, right? Maybe you believe she deserves that. Maybe you want to avoid health problems that your parents faced previously or that previous family members have faced. Maybe you want to avoid the consequences that you've seen people in your life previously deal with as a result of their poor health. That's definitely a deep motivation. This is one of my motivations for me doing what I do, other than obviously wanting to lead and inspire all the people that I lead. But the point here is you have to acknowledge that motivations are present, but you lack motivation. Okay, so how do you take those motivations and translate them into motivation? Definition 1 into definition 2. How do we actually create that translation? Getting some coffee in this morning. So here's what I've noticed. Over all of the men that I've worked with over the years that this company has been in operation since 2019, I've noticed that even the most motivated, driven individuals who have extreme willpower, like I'm talking guys who have built $100 million companies, guys who have raised families, guys who have overcome a lot of hardship in their lives, even with guys like that, guys who are very disciplined and driven individuals, guys who are already leaders, even with them, their willpower and their motivation is ultimately fatiguing, right? Like this short-term emotional feeling of like, I want to do it. I have the desire. I have the drive. I have the willingness to do it. That exists for sure. And it exists for longer time periods, and it exists more intensely over time as you work on it. But ultimately, at some point, it always fades. Like every single person at some point is going to feel unmotivated. Even me, when I was writing out this document, there were moments where I was like ripping it, right? Like, let's freaking do this. I can't wait to write down all this information so I can help all the people who are going to watch this. But there were moments of like, right? There were highs and lows even in just writing this document in terms of motivation, right? And so if there's going to be highs and lows just in tasks that you're completing throughout the day in terms of motivation, wouldn't you expect there to be highs and lows over your life in terms of motivation? There are going to be seasons where you're driven, you're desiring it, you want it bad, and you're willing to just eat the heart of any other man who gets in your way in order to reach your goals. But there's also going to be times where you don't really feel like it. There's also going to be times where you're fatigued, where you're tired, whether that be mentally or physically. So how do we actually do that anyway? Right? How do we create the consistency regardless of the fluctuations in our motivation? Because we know motivation is going to fluctuate, right? Especially when it comes to our health. One of the reasons that our motivation fluctuates so deeply when it comes to our health is because one of the factors that brings people into a state of low motivation is decision fatigue. It's when they have literally too many options, or they have this burden of making too many conscious decisions, right? Human beings want things to be easy. We want to find the path of least resistance just naturally. And when it comes to our health, it's really, really interesting because subconsciously with our health and with our bodies, we make thousands of little decisions every single moment of every single day, right? Like I'm making the decision here of working at a standing desk, right? Although that's not huge and that doesn't require a lot of energy and conscious thought, it is a decision, right? We make the decisions of how we move our bodies, where we move our bodies, how we're sitting in our chair, right? We make the decision of what we're putting into our bodies, right? Sometimes how we're breathing, right? There are so many decisions that we make throughout the day subconsciously that almost overwhelm our subconscious mind when it comes to what we're doing with our bodies, that decision fatigue when it comes to your health and your body sets in quickly. It sets in multiple times a day sometimes. This is why you can wake up, eat a healthy breakfast, maybe even hit a workout, and then the afternoon rolls around and you're trying to stick to your nutrition goals, whatever the diet you may be doing is, and you lose it, right? You're like, I'll just get what everybody else is getting at the office, right? Or maybe you even stuck it strong through lunch. You didn't snack, you drink your water, but then dinner comes around and the last thing you want to do is figure out what healthy meal you should be eating. The last thing you want to do is figure out how to get in a high protein meal, right? And so you just drive through like the Burger King drive through, whatever, or you just order pizza for the family and you munch on 4 slices, you're 2,000 calories deep, wondering why you're in this yo-yo cycle of your weight loss, right? Do you see how decision fatigue sets in really, really quickly when it comes to your health? This is why you have these ups and downs, even on a daily basis, not even just to mention a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a yearly basis sometimes, right? So we cannot rely on this motivation, and we have to find a way to default to the healthy actions, regardless of the decision fatigue or regardless of the decision fatigue or regardless of the levels of motivation. So how do we do that? How do we do that? That's where default actions come into play, right? Default actions are referring to the habits that you default to essentially mindlessly, right? These are the habits that are like on autopilot that you do without having to consciously motivate yourself to do. These are the habits that you'll do even when you're busy, even when you're tired, even when you're stressed, even when you're overwhelmed, even when the circumstances around you are changing. Right? So if we can put those habits on autopilot, then that's when they stick no matter what. That's when you don't have to actually make decisions about them. That's when you don't have to actually rely on like, oh, can I stick it out? Can I be disciplined? Can I have the willpower to make it happen? Right? You just end up doing it. And that's what we teach guys how to build in Default Kings. And I'm about to give you the step-by-step right here on how to do that yourself. So this is where, if you haven't yet, definitely bring out a journal or a notebook of some kind, because completing these journal exercises is going to be extremely significant in terms of you having a mindset shift. Okay. I know that I've heard some guys say before they start this, that this sounds somewhat woo-woo, right? Like it sounds kind of fugazi, out in the air. But here's what I'm going to say about that. In terms of this possibly seeming woo-woo, I understand. Right? We're men. We are logical. We are driven. We want things to be concrete. We want things to be tangible. But what I found is that if a man wants to rise high physically, then he has to look deep within mentally. Okay. If a man wants to rise high physically, he has to look deep within mentally. And I will go straight to the primary example of this in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, right? Jesus was able to physically endure torture and crucifixion, not with a smile on his face, but with a smile on his heart. Okay. And that was a direct result of his connection to God and his ability and willingness to reflect deep within, to look deep within. Okay. So if that does not communicate how, if you are able to look deep within, that's going to translate into you rising high physically, or rising high in any other area of life, not even just physically, then I don't know what does. Okay. I do not know what does. And that's what this is going to do here. It's going to give you a framework to start looking deep within. It's going to give you a framework to start identifying what are the mental blocks that are holding you back from this unstoppable motivation, from this complete consistency. Okay. That's what we're doing here. Step number 1 is going to be journaling your negative identity and your positive self-identity, your negative self-identity and your positive self-identity. So your self-identity is a belief. It's your perception of yourself, right? It's how you view yourself. It's the words that you say about yourself. And that's going to be the most powerful belief that ends up influencing your actions. Okay. Remember this, who you are determines what you'll do. Who you are determines what you'll do. That's why in the Bible, like even Jesus and God, who inspired the language of the Bible, even that language was intentional in terms of this communication of we need to change our self-identities, right? That's why there's the language of being reborn in Christ, right? That's why there's the language of like the old you being dead, right? And the new you being reborn in Christ, because it is literally a shift in who you are when you are saved. And that's why it influences the actions of Christians so deeply, right? This is why Christians are able to act in accordance with their identity in Christ, regardless of even their own biological motivations or circumstances or societal pressures, right? One of the primary examples of this is, how are Christians able to abstain from premarital sex? How are they able to act in a way that literally opposes like their biological drives plus the societal norms around them, especially the younger Christians of today's day and age, right? Where all of this wokeness and sexual promiscuity and sexual identity and everything is free and just do whatever you want and just be whoever you want at any time and just act on every impulse, where that's the norm and that's what is given status and that is what is pushed on these young people. How are we able to act in accordance with our identity anyway? It is because of our self-identity. It's because of our identity in Christ, right? And so there is no difference when it comes to your health, because there are going to be moments in which literally your biology is pushing you towards certain unhealthy actions, right? Because there's a reason that the Oreos at the end of the night actually like look appetizing. There is a reason why sometimes you want to overeat, right? Side little tangent here, but let's talk about those biological reasons. Maybe there is something within you, right, where Oreos as a food source that are extremely calorically dense, right, because they're just essentially carbs of sugar. They're essentially just a combination of carbs, sugar, and fats, and those are extremely powerful energy sources. Maybe there is some kind of biological drive for you to overconsume those things, right, so that you have the storage of fat that you're able to call on in times of famine, right? And maybe your body or your brain feels like you're in this sense of famine just because there is this extremely high stress situation or circumstance going on in your work life or your family life, right? Maybe also we get this dopamine hit from the chips that we eat at the end of the night that we're eating so mindlessly. And maybe our brain is just looking for that mindless dopamine hit because it gives us a sense of emotional control to deal with all the other things in our life that we don't control right now, whether that be work, whether that be family, or maybe, just maybe, your poor health is the thing in your life, is the only thing in your life that is out of control. Maybe, just maybe, your body right now is the only thing in your life that is out of control. And maybe you cope with that. Maybe you cope with your body being out of control by doing something that brings your body into an even worse state, right? So how do we counteract that? Not even to mention the societal pushes, right? Not even to mention the fact that every time you hang out with the boys and you're watching football, they're asking you why you're not grabbing another beer, right? So that's why we need to change our self-identity. Our self-identity is what's going to give us the strength to act in a way, even when our motivations are opposing those actions, okay? So journaling this, when you journal down and you write down your negative self-identity, ask yourself some of the questions of like, what's the conversation like in your head when you look in the mirror, right? What do you say about yourself? What is the way that you perceive yourself? What's the language you use if you were to describe yourself when you're alone? And a lot of kind of the feedback that I'll get from guys like this is, oh, I'm a fat, lazy, undisciplined piece of shit, right? I'm a fat, lazy slob or something along those lines. And so here's a real actual example from somebody in Default Kings. And of course he's going to remain completely anonymous, but what he wrote down as his past self-identity was, let's see here. Handwriting is a little bit difficult to read. But it says past self-identity, a spineless porn addict, afraid to defend my beliefs, comfortable in my mediocrity. That's how he views himself, or that's how he viewed himself, right? And maybe you don't necessarily struggle with the exact same negative self-identity. Of course, every single person is different. Every single person has different struggles. But what is the negative way that you view yourself? Do you view yourself as that fat, lazy slob? Or do you view yourself as that guy who just, I'm just a big eater? Maybe it's something as simple as that, right? Or I just can't control myself, man, when they throw the bread on the freaking table. I like self-control. Maybe it's something as simple as that. Or maybe there are other life struggles that are relevant here, right? So ask yourself those questions. It's not going to be enjoyable asking yourself those questions and writing them down. But if you can be honest with yourself, and again, if you can look deep within, then you will rise very, very high. Okay. Now, once you journal that negative self-identity, it's going to bring a lot of awareness to the beliefs that you're going to destroy by changing your default actions. Now, your next step here is going to be journaling your positive self-identity. So who is the man that you are called to be? Who is the man that you are called to be? Who do you want to be recognized as? Those are some of the questions that you're going to ask yourself, right? This is going to bring clarity to the positive self-identity that you're working towards with your new healthy default action. So again, example here from one of the guys in Default Case. He says, let's see. I am meant to be a man of faith, strong of character and body, a leader of my future family and of my community. I am the spiritual and physical leader of my future family, mentally and physically tough, complete. I believe that says complete, or competent and confident. Okay. I accomplish this by remaining consistent in my training and nutrition. I do not flee from discomfort. I embrace challenges. Powerful, right? Complete shift from the way that he's viewed himself in the past. Complete shift from the conversation that's been in his head when he looked himself in the mirror. Okay, so what does that look like for you? Maybe it is that I am the strong, healthy, disciplined leader of my family. That's a really, really common one for a lot of guys to go through the system, right? Maybe it is something like this, where I am not a man who backs down from challenges or discomfort, right? Maybe it is I am the spiritual and physical rock of my household. Maybe it is I am capable of protecting and providing for the people that I love, right? Maybe it is my children look to me as an example. Maybe it is my children look to me as somebody that they aspire to be like. Right? Maybe it is my colleagues and my coworkers and the people I sell to instantly respect me upon first impression. Maybe it's something along those lines, right? So write that down the same way you did for your past negative self-identity. It's going to bring clarity. That's what we're going to work towards. Step number 2 here, okay, is shifting from the self-identity. This is going to be very, very tactical. What you're going to do for step number 2 is you're going to create a power list, and you're going to do this daily, okay? So this is one that you do daily. Self-identity is done essentially one time. You can update it, of course. You can redo it as needed, but that's done one time. Excuse me. This is done daily. Okay, so your power list is going to be a list of the 3 to 5 highest ROI tasks that move you towards your new self-identity. That this language here is very, very intentional. It's not just a list of tasks. It's not just a to-do list. It's not just high ROI tasks, because there's a lot of high ROI tasks that we can all be doing in all different areas of life at all times of the day. But what are the 3 to 5 highest ROI tasks that will move you towards your new self-identity? Okay. So put thought into this. Okay. And be deliberate about what you're writing down. Now, for all of you guys who are watching this, you obviously want this unstoppable motivation to reach a physical goal of some sort, permanent health, right? Some sort of physical peak in terms of your body, in terms of your physique, in terms of your consistency, your discipline, your drive, all the stuff. So what that means is that working out on the days that you're scheduled to work out and hitting your nutrition goal daily must be on this list. It is required, because if you don't do those things, you will not reach that goal, obviously physically, and you will not be the man who is aligned with the new self-identity. So you need to have working out on the days where you work out, and hitting your nutrition goal on this power list. Maybe you also put in some other things in the power list that build other aspects of your life, right? Like maybe you're trying to continue to build your business or just perform professionally. So maybe you write something like, I'm going to reach out to past prospects, because you want to be able to provide for your family more. You want to be the man who provides for your family, right? Or provides more security to your family, to your children, to your wife. Maybe you put here in your self-identity that you want to be a better husband. You want to be a husband who inspires and excites and ignites your marriage. So maybe on your power list one day you put buy babe roses. Something as simple as that, right? Things that move you towards your new self-identity. Of course, your workouts on your workout days and your nutrition goal daily has to be part of this list. Now, keep in mind that, of course, there's going to be like sub-tasks that are part of these big 3 to 5 high ROI tasks, and that's okay. but do not write down the subtasks, because the point of this power list is not just to bring focus, attention, and priority to the things that you need to do to move you forward. The focus of this power list is also for you to be capable of finishing it, because when you finish it and you look at that power list with every single box checked at the end of the day, then that becomes undeniable, physical, tangible evidence to your mind that you're actually capable of doing the things that you say you need to do, that you're actually capable of being the man who's consistent, disciplined, and driven, that you're actually capable of being the man who does things that support and build that new self-identity. Okay, so we want you to be able to look at this at the end of every single day and have it as confirmation that, you know what, I am that man who I wrote down as my new self-identity. That is one of the points here. That is one of the points of significance in the power list. So that's why it's really, really important to keep it to those 3 to 5 high ROI tasks. Okay, make sure that it's completable yet challenging. Completable yet challenging. Find that balance. It shouldn't be as easy as like wake up, take a shit and like exist. That should not be your power list, but it also shouldn't be a list of just things that are impossible to complete. Okay. Moving on. Step number 3. This one isn't going to require a journal daily, but definitely a journal session, notebook session, whether it's during this video, after this video, or at some point in the next few days. Step number 3 is auditing and adjusting your inputs. Okay, auditing and adjusting your inputs. So when I say inputs, what I'm talking about is the sources of stimulus that you consume on a day-to-day basis. Okay, your inputs. What are the things that flood information and stimulus into your mind, right? What do you watch on TV? Who do you follow on social media? What music do you listen to? What podcasts do you listen to? Who do you hang out with? What do you read? Okay, what are the things that influence your mind subconsciously? What are the things that influence your thoughts subconsciously? So write down on a journal or write down on a notebook, like what are the things that you're consuming from all of these different areas, right? Who are the people that you're consuming? What are they talking about? What are their discussions like, right? Are they people who are negative? Are they people who complain, right? It might be a little bit tough to acknowledge some of those things, but those things do influence your beliefs, right? This is why in 2020, the mainstream media, CNN and all the rest, was able to brainwash half the country. Okay, it's not because they actually had logical evidence as to why you should like wear a mask and get jabbed up 5 times and like skip grandma's funeral and stuff like that, right? But what they did was they overwhelmed the country with these inputs thousands of times per day on all media sources, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, and on all news networks, just this fear of this little cough, right? And so what happened is people ended up ultimately believing what they were taking in as inputs, and their beliefs were so concrete that they ended up taking all these crazy actions, like taking experimental vaccines, 5 times over the course of a year or so. So that should be an example to you of how impactful your inputs are on your beliefs and your actions, right? And there's another lesson in here about how they actually created a self-identity for all these people as people who were moral, or as people who were, they called us like COVID deniers and stuff like that, right? Or conspiracy theorists or whatever it was. They created self-identity for them, and they created self-identity for us. And again, the self-identity is the most impactful belief on your default actions. And so when they adopt the self-identity of somebody who is a COVID believer or whatever, again, that influences your actions, but you get it here, right? The inputs are very, very, very impactful. And I'm willing to safely assume that you are not consuming like CNN all the time or following a bunch of crazy wokies on Instagram or Twitter or anything like that, because you're watching this. But what I am certain of is that you're not consuming the inputs that are necessary to actually build the beliefs that are going to move you towards your new self-identity and your goal, right? I'm sure that you're not consuming inputs, hopefully, that are bringing you down, but you're kind of at a neutral state right now in terms of at least this goal, right? We need to bring you to that positive state. We need you to rise high. We can't just be average. We can't just be neutral, because average and neutral, unfortunately, in this day and age, with the access to food that we have and all the other influences, means that we are gaining weight year over year, that we're never consistent, and then we're eventually going to have our lives be ended by something that was pretty much preventable, right? So become aware of your inputs. Write down the things that you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. And we need to remove, obviously, the things that do not align with your new self-identity, and we need to add things in that help you build your new self-identity. Okay, 2 things that you absolutely should do. I'm saying this with complete conviction and confidence because this is literally the purpose of our every single day interaction on these platforms, is follow myself and Joey on Twitter. Our entire goal is to provide you with positive inputs in order to help you build that self-identity as becoming the man that's the lean and healthy leader of your family. That is what we do. Okay, so follow Joey and myself on Twitter. Watch all of our videos on YouTube. Listen to them as podcasts. Listen to them on your walks. Listen to them in the car. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Instagram, so that even without you intending, even if you're just mindlessly on these platforms, you are getting these positive inputs and these beliefs built that are going to help you move towards that goal. Okay, read the Bible. Okay, I recommend that very, very specifically in regards to your health and fitness goals, because you can only love yourself as much as you love your creator. And if you deepen your relationship with God, you being a reflection of God, you are going to start to treat yourself better. You're going to start to take care of yourself better, because you'll understand that this is a body that he loaned you, and this is the vehicle that he gave you to carry out his mission for your life on this earth. And the more you love God, the less likely you are to self-sabotage this vehicle. Okay, so read the Bible, grow your relationship with God. Now, this stuff is so important. I'm just going to give you a few examples of how much we value this. In Default Kings, we value this so much that in Default Kings, we provide 8 group roundtable meetings per week for every single person inside of the system, right? This means that there is more opportunity for positive inputs by being on these group coaching calls with myself, with Joey, with the other coaching staff on our team. There's more opportunity for positive inputs for the men in the program than there are days in the week. And of course, they're at different times, so guys can fit them in between their work schedule. And of course, they can listen back to the archives if they can't make them. But we value this so much that we overwhelm our guys with opportunities for experiencing these positive inputs, whether it be our nutrition calls, or whether it be our training calls, or whether it be our default actions calls, or our iron sharpening iron calls, or whether it be our Bible study, right? Overwhelmed with opportunity for positive influence. And we also literally create group chats with every single one of our guys, with myself, Joey, their client success specialist, so that we're constantly, again, influencing them with these positive inputs, these things that are going to adjust their beliefs, these things that are going to build their new self-identity. They have constant communication with us and their one-on-one coach, right? They also have unlimited strategy calls with their client success specialist, so that there is literally never a lack of positive inputs, of positive beliefs, of encouragement, of accountability, of all the rest of the things that help build these default actions and help build that new self-identity, right? Your inputs are so important. And here is really like the ultimate pro tip that I want to give you guys in terms of your inputs. Other than what you consume, right? Other than what you listen to, other than just the environment that you're in. The ultimate input that I've seen affect a man's actions is accountability from other men in his life who have similar values. Okay, I want you to think about it like this. I'm willing to bet that you have probably never turned on a football game and seen a receiver catch the ball and just like trot to the end zone because he had a bad day, right? Like he had a bad day. He wasn't feeling very motivated. So he's just like, okay, I guess I'll do this, right? That never happens. In fact, there are cases where receivers on football teams have really bad days, yet perform even better than their average performance, right? You've seen the stories of like receivers who their dad just died or something the day before, and then they have like the game of a lifetime the very next day. One of the reasons why in a situation like this, sports, football game, one of the reasons why a man psychologically is capable of continuing to perform even when he himself might have had a bad day or lacks motivation is because of the men who surround him. It's because he has surrounded himself with men who have been through similar struggles, so he relates to them personally, right? The struggles with practice and the workouts and stuff like that. And also men who have similar values and goals, right? He knows that all those men want the same thing as him. They want to win the game. And when you have that in your life, it becomes inhuman for you to not be consistent. It becomes inhuman for you to not do your best. I'm not even to mention just like the competitive aspect of wanting to rise the ranks of status in your social circles. So if your social circle is one of men of high value and one of good men with good values, then it's actually beneficial to rise the ranks in terms of your social status, and you want to do that, right? So I really believe it is of the utmost importance to have men in your life who have these healthy default actions, so that being healthy becomes a standard and not like some woo-woo goal to just aspire towards, or not just a luxury, right? You want it to become a standard, and you will absolutely conform to that standard. Just make sure that the standard that is being set with the men in your life is positive, is good, is one that you aspire towards, is one that aligns with the man that you know God is calling you to be. If you can do that, you are unstoppable. Even Jesus surrounded himself with the 12 disciples, right? There's a lot of significance there. So use all of these psychological tools to help yourself build healthy default actions. Do these journaling exercises, audit your inputs, write down your negative and positive self-identity, surround yourself with other men, get in these environments, create your power list. And of course, with all of this, you still need a game plan to actually see physical results take place, right? Because even if you're the most motivated man on earth, if you're doing the wrong things, then you're going to be super motivated, super disciplined, driven, amazing, but you're not going to actually see physical results. So what I did here is I linked a training program that helped one of our guys, Alex, lose over 40 pounds while he was traveling between 6 different countries in 1 year for work. He works in the crypto industry, super fast-paced industry. So click this image, because in this image, it is hyperlinked his exact workout program. I'm just going to share it with you really quick here. And there's free video training just as well, but literally sets, rest time, exercises, form videos, order, schedule, everything is here. And this is going to be a really, really solid foundation. Of course, this is Alex's, and we say this here. There are going to be things that you need to learn how to customize, how to fit around your own schedule, how to fit around your own equipment access, of course, but this is a really, really good base to work off of. And if you have a very similar kind of setup, lifestyle, family priorities as to what Alex did, then this will be very, very solid for you, and it will work. So click the image here for that link. And if you want direct help with losing 10% of your body weight in the next 12 weeks, remember that we guarantee that as a bare minimum target. So if you're 250 pounds, that means 25 pounds bare minimum lost. And we teach you this default actions framework. Okay, we teach you how to actually apply this. You actually have access to the group of men, of all the other guys who are working with us right now, where iron can actually sharpen iron. You have access to us. You have access to your one-on-one client success specialist who is literally on the clock to keep you accountable. We take care of all of the practical setup of your game plan for you, so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to stress about that. You just show up and see results. And we give you access to our default action framework, which is the exact actionable steps to actually apply all this stuff. So if that sounds like something you might want, then go to defaultkings.com. defaultkings.com. There's a free training video there that teaches you what it's going to be like to actually do this, and you can book a free brainstorming chat with my team so that you can talk about how to actually reach those goals. Okay, that is exactly what Mr. Henry did, and 20 months later, he's down 168 pounds. He's completed 350 workouts in a row, and he is a pillar of motivation in his community. And so if you want to lose the weight and keep it off for good, go to defaultkings.com. Thank you for watching this video, and see you on the next one.